Commissioners, this is Troy. You are live and recording.
Troy, thank you very much. So welcome everybody. It's 3:15. We had a regular business meeting that lasted a little bit longer than expected, but we're convening our land use meeting and public hearing. Now we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll all join. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Attorney Pratt, do we have certification of the agenda today?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Chris Pratt with the County Attorney's Office. The items on your agenda today, the first two items 2A and B, did not require specialized notice, but were noticed 24 hours prior to this meeting. And the item 3A, the Highlands Ranch Plan Development 77th Amendment, Project File ZR 2022-011, had published notice accomplished on September 22nd, mailed notice accomplished August 26th, and signed posted notice accomplished September 30th. All of these items have been properly noticed, and you have jurisdiction to hear them today.
Thank you, Attorney Pratt. Do we have any commissioner disclosures for items on this agenda today?
I have none.
No, sir.
And I have none either. With that, we'll move to our first item and item 2, our land use meeting agenda items. It's item 2A, Sterling Ranch filing number 6B-approval extension, project file XT 2022-006. Brett Thomas presenting for staff. Hi, Brett.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brett Thomas for Plan Services. In the interest of time, I was going to present items 2A and 2B as one presentation.
Is the board okay with that?
You bet.
I am. Thank you, Brett.
Okay.
The request is approval extensions for Sterling Ranch Filing 6B and Sterling Ranch Filing 6C. The owner is Sterling Ranch, LLC. The request is for an extension to the recordation periods for both filings 6B and 6C. The applicant requests an extension to the approval of Sterling Ranch Filing 6B until December 7th, 2023, an extension to the approval of Filing 6C until March 22nd, 2024. As depicted on this map, the filings are located west of Moore Road in the vicinity of the Waterton Road extension. Subdivision resolution allows the director to grant a time extension for plat recordation of up to 1 year upon a written request by the applicant for good cause being shown. Further extensions may be granted by the Board of County Commissioners at a public meeting upon written request by the applicant. In this case, the director granted an extension for filing 6B through December 7th, 2022, and for filing 6C through March 22nd, 2023. Based on the standards for an extension of plat recordation extension to December 7th, 2023 for filing 6B, subject to the 8 original conditions of approval, may be approved by the board. A recordation extension to March 22nd, 2024 for filing 6C, subject to the 10 original conditions of approval, may also be approved by the board. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm available to take questions at this time. Otherwise, the applicant's present to answer any questions you may have.
And Brett, is that your presentation for item 2B as well, or are you going to continue with that?
Yes, that covers both of them.
Covers both. Okay. Any questions for staff?
I have none.
No, sir.
And I have none either. If the applicant wanted to make its presentation, no presentation from the applicant. Okay, with that, I'll open it up for any citizen comment. Is there any citizen comment on either item 2A or 2B? Troy, do we have any citizen comment online?
Thank you, Commissioner. I have no online comment.
Okay, and with that, I'll close citizen comment and bring it back to the board for any further discussion and or a motion.
I have a motion to approve the Sterling Ranch Filing 6B, approval extension, project file XT 2022-006.
Second.
So we have a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries 3-0.
If it pleases the board, I do have a motion to approve the Sterling Ranch filing number 6C, approval extension, project file XT 2022-005.
Second.
There's a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries 3-0 as well. So with that, we'll move to our item 3A, which is Highlands Ranch Plan Development 77th Amendment, project file ZR 2022-011. Once again, Brett Thomas presenting for staff.
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. Brett Thomas, Planning Services. I have handed the county attorney's office 2 exhibits, one titled Exhibit 1, the other Exhibit 2. They are emails that were received in the last week from public regarding this application that did not make it into the staff report. They were received after the deadline, and a copy has also been provided to the applicant. The request is a major PD amendment to the Highlands Ranch PD, project number ZR 2022-011. Shea Bertola of Miller United Real Estate is the project applicant. The request is for a major amendment to the Highlands Ranch PD to amend the boundary of Planning Area 43 and increase the total dwelling units allowed within Planning Area 43 by 48 units. The intent of the PD process is to encourage innovative and creative design, facilitate a mix of use in the development of a balanced community, including residential, business, commercial, recreational, open, and other selected secondary uses in accordance with Section 2467-101, Colorado Revised Statutes. An amendment to a PD is considered a major amendment subject to public hearings when, among other criteria, it involves substantial changes to the development standards or commitments or changes in allowed land use categories. The PD rezoning process begins with submittal of an application. Following a review period by referral agencies and the public, notice is given for public hearings before the Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners. The school district stated the property has been declared surplus property that is no longer necessary for future school facilities. The Highlands Ranch Community Association noted concerns with traffic, drainage, and overall intent of the PD. Public correspondence was received in response to the courtesy notice process, generally noted concerns with traffic, development of the site, additional residential units, and maintaining character of the neighborhood. At a public hearing on October 17th, the Planning Commission considered the applicant's request for approval of a major amendment. The Commissioner's discussion focused on drainage facilities, studies that will be submitted with the subdivision process, and previous proposals to use the site as a school or open space. 3 members of the public spoke. Concerns included water impacts, intensity of development, and wildlife impacts. The applicant noted that Centennial Water and Sanitation District provided a will-serve letter for water and that Highlands Ranch exceeds required open space commitments. In addition, the applicant noted the conceptual layout matches the final plat previously approved in 1994. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the major amendment request, subject to one condition proposed by staff by a vote of 6-0. The site is located in the western portion of the Highlands Ranch PD, south of Highway C-470 and east of US Highway 85. As outlined in red on the zoning map, the site is located south of Town Center Drive between Lucent Boulevard on the east and US Highway 85 on the west. The land surrounding the site is also within the Highlands Ranch PD. This is an aerial depicting the extent of the subject property. Property is adjacent to Bitterroot Place on the north and Ironwood Street on the east. Property is surrounded by single-family residences within Planning Area 43 that were platted as part of Highlands Ranch Filing 112A or Highlands Ranch Filing 112A Second Amendment. Highlands Ranch Filing 112A was approved by the board in 1994. In 1997, the board approved the 34th Amendment to the Highlands Ranch PD, which converted previously zoned light industrial land north of this area to a residential use. The addition of residential uses necessitated the need for an additional school site, and in 1998, the board approved a replat, Highlands Ranch Filing 112A, Second Amendment, which created Tract A for a school site. The replat that created Tract A vacated 49 single-family residential lots and public right-of-way for Cactus Bluff Court and a portion of Cactus Bluff Avenue. The replat also slightly modified 11 existing lots along Cactus Bluff Place to the southwest of Tract A and extended Ironwood Street to create a new connection to Town Center Drive to the north. Tract A was owned by the Board of County Commissioners for the benefit of the school district as a future school site. Last year, the school district requested ownership of the tract be transferred from the county to the school district so that it could be declared surplus property, no longer necessary for a school facility. The school district listed Tract A for sale, and the applicant for this major amendment is currently under contract to purchase the property. The applicant requests a major amendment to the Highlands Ranch PD development plan map to remove the elementary school label from Tract A. The property is proposed to be removed from the non-urban area and designated as Planning Area 43. This would increase the gross residential acreage of Planning Area 43 from 169 acres to 179 acres. It would increase the total gross residential acreage within the PD from 6,807 acres to 6,818 acres. It would reduce the non-urban area within the PD from 12,900 acres to 12,890 acres. And it would reduce the total gross residential acreage for elementary schools from 472 acres to 462 acres. The proposal increases the total dwelling units within Planning Area 43 by 48 units. However, the gross density of Planning Area 43 would remain unchanged at 4.2 dwelling units per acre. The total number of dwelling units within the overall PD is proposed to increase from 36,020 total units to 36,068 total units. The approval standards for a major PD amendment request are set forth in Section 15 and listed on the slide. Staff's assessment of the approval standards is discussed in detail within the staff report. Section 1522.08 of the zoning resolution sets forth the parameters for the board's determination on the amendment request as noted on this slide. Staff has evaluated the major plan development request in accordance with Section 15 of the zoning resolution. Should the board find that the approval standards have been met, the following proposed conditions should be considered for inclusion in the motion. Condition number 1, prior to recordation, all minor technical corrections will be made to the plan development document to the satisfaction of Douglas County. And condition number 2, all commitments and promises made by the applicant or the applicant's representative during the public hearing and or agreed to in writing and included in the public record have been relied upon by the Board of County Commissioners in approving the application. Therefore, such approval is conditioned upon the applicant's full satisfaction of all such commitments and promises. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm available to take questions on the staff report at this time. Otherwise, Shea Bertola with Miller United Real Estate has a presentation.
Thank you, Brett. Any questions for Brett?
I have none, thank you.
No, sir.
You know, I have a couple, and I'll probably reserve most of them following the applicant's presentation, but I wanted to identify the letter that was received from the Highlands Ranch Community Association on April 8th, indicating that the quantity of available residential lots within the HRPD is capped. Can you speak to that issue?
Yes, the Highlands Ranch PD currently allows for a maximum of 36,020 total units. And so as part of this request, the applicant is asking to amend the Highlands Ranch plan development to allow the total number of units to be 36,068 total units.
Okay, thank you. With that, let's have the applicant come up and provide their presentation, please.
All right. Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Daniel Jennings. I'm with Norris Design, and I'm part of the project team who's here today. My address is 1101 Bannock Street, Denver, Colorado. And I'm here on behalf of my client, Miller United Real Estate, and we're pleased to present our application for a major amendment to the Highlands Ranch plan development. And first off, we'd like to thank Brett for his presentation and all of his work and all of the county staff's work over the past year to help us get our plans ready to the point where we can bring them before you today. This project has involved coordination between several local agencies, and we wanted to acknowledge them up front. All of the different groups that we've really worked with over the past year. The Douglas County School District, who owns the land, and they put it up for sale to be developed by our client, Miller United, and of course they've been part of the review process for our amendment application as well. Douglas County Planning Commission, who unanimously recommended our project for approval back in October as part of the county's review process. This body, the Board of County Commissioners, who approved the property for sale by Douglas County School District back in February of 2021, and of course are now reviewing our plans today as part of this current step in the review process. The Centennial Water and Sanitation District, they are the local area water authority. South Metro Fire Rescue, who will serve any future development of the site, and the Highlands Ranch Community Association, HRCA, who have verified that any future development would be a part of their community association, and of course our Westridge neighbors who have been and will continue to be an integral part of the development process. Now I'd like to introduce our project team. We have Rich Cosgrove. He's the Chief Operating Officer with the Douglas County School District, and he is here on their behalf as they are the property owner. We have Shay Bertola with Miller United Real Estate. They are the applicant. Myself and my colleague Ryan Kasirik are planners with Norris Design. We have Ben Satterwhite and Brett Zminkowski with HKS. They are our civil and traffic engineers respectively. And David Foster with Foster, Graham, Milstein, and Kalisher. They are our project's legal counsel. So that's our entire team. We will be here to answer any questions you have at the conclusion of our presentation. First, just want to tell you a little bit about Miller United Real Estate. They are a local real estate company who have a successful history of working in Douglas County and really doing the type of infill projects like the one that we brought before you today. In fact, they've done several recent projects in Douglas County that are very similar in size and scope. Just want to quickly share those with you. This is the overlook at Cherry Creek, neighborhood of single-family homes. While it's located in Douglas County, it's also in Incorporated Parker. Here's Crystal Valley West, a townhome development that they recently did. While located in Douglas County, it's also in Incorporated Castle Rock. This is Canyon Village, a single-family home community that they are currently finishing build-out on, and it is located in Highlands Ranch, just like our site. This is the Cityscape at Highline, another community of single-family homes that is also in Highlands Ranch, and then the villages at Castle Pines, which they recently did in Castle Pines Village. So we share all of these with you to show that these kinds of residential infill projects, they're really our bread and butter. And we've had good success with doing them in Douglas County. And so this Westridge project that we brought before you today is really the logical next project for Miller United. One additional thing I want to mention about Miller United is their initiative to partner with local nonprofits in the jurisdictions within which they work to give back to the community. In the instance of this project, they have partnered with the Family Center of Douglas County, an organization that supports families in need, and a portion of the proceeds from this project will go to the Family Center. Now to get into the details of our application, Brett pretty much covered the location of the site. I'm sure you're all aware of where it's located. It is within Highlands Ranch. This is the PD map, and you can see our site is within Planning Area 43. Quick rundown of the application that we've been processing. This is a major amendment to the PD, and our request is to amend the PD to change the existing land use for the site from an elementary school site to a use of residential medium, which is consistent with the surrounding Planning Area 43. So if you look at these graphics on the right of the screen, those are close-ups of that PD map that I shared on the previous slide, and it's just zoomed in on our site. And the top image is the existing PD map, and you can see our site is designated with the E, signifying that the site is designated as an elementary school site. Our amendment application involves changing that land use and therefore changing the map to what is shown in the second image with the E designation just simply removed from the map so that our site will be completely absorbed into the surrounding Planning Area 43 and therefore subject to the same standards of that surrounding planning area. This change in use per the PD amendment would add 48 lots to the Highlands Ranch Master Plan. And there are several reasons we think that it merits your approval today. First, the Douglas County School District and the Board of County Commissioners, this body, selected this site for development back in February 2021. Second, given the surrounding neighborhood, this is a logical infill site in which to add similar residential lots to the neighborhood, given the existing infrastructure that's already in place. And finally, our proposed PD amendment will guarantee that development of the site will be subject to the development standards of the surrounding residential community and ensuring that any future development that takes place on the site will be consistent with the character of the existing neighborhood. In fact, it just so happens that that was the original plan for the site, for it to be developed as residential lots, as you can see in this plat from 1994. This plat was put forth by Mission Viejo. They were the predecessor to Shea Homes, and As you can see, the lots were designed with the rest of the neighborhood as one large single-family neighborhood. So those surrounding lots, they were all built out into the homes that you see in the neighborhood today, with the exception of our site, which are the lots highlighted in yellow. Because about 5 years later, the plat was amended, and those 48 lots in yellow were removed to allow for the site to become an elementary school. With that amendment, the property was dedicated to Douglas County on behalf of the school district until such a time as it was determined that a school would be needed. However, it was determined that if the school district determined a school site was not needed, then they would seek the return of the property from the Board of County Commissioners, and that's exactly what happened back in February 2021. The school district requested that this body convey the title of the property back to them so that they could sell the property for development. And on February 23rd, this body unanimously approved doing so, and the title was transferred back to the school district. After they received the title, they took the property to the open market for sale, and they did so with the intent of generating revenues for the school district to help increase teacher salaries and education of its students by providing additional materials like books and computers. And it was in putting this property on the sale, up for sale on the open market, that my client, Miller United Real Estate, was selected as the buyer, and that is what has led to our proposal and us bringing this before you today. We are, of course, here to talk about a PD amendment, but that amendment will ultimately set the stage for the site to be developed as single-family residential lots. This is our proposed development plan, and it follows the original 1994 plat with a layout of 48 residential lots, ensuring that the lots that are developed are consistent with the existing neighborhood. Our amendment application proposes that the site adopt the development standards of Section 4, low density, medium low density, and medium density one-family residential of the Highlands Ranch PD, which is consistent with the development standards of the surrounding residential neighborhood. And we will show some elevations later in the presentation, some images of the homes that are being considered, but ultimately the homes that will be built on the site would be similar in quality and size and type to the homes of the existing neighborhood. It's worth noting that in the case of this site, any future development would be considered infill development, which is a more sustainable form of development than greenfield development. It's more sustainable because the infrastructure is already in place. We're not building new infrastructure. But to that point, part of our application process has been ensuring that there is existing infrastructure to serve the future development of the site if it were to be built out as 48 residential lots as we have proposed. So to that end, we reached out and sought will-serve letters from these service providers early in the process, and we've also received a letter of support from Shea Homes, the master developer of Highlands Ranch. All of these, I think, are in your hearing packet. But Centennial Water and Sanitation District, they indicated that they will serve the site. Douglas County School District indicated that there is sufficient student capacity for the development. South Metro Fire Rescue indicated that they will serve the development. We spoke with the Highlands Ranch Community Association, and they stated that if the site were developed, it would be included as part of their community association, and we look forward to working with them as we've done on past projects. And we also want to point out that we've consulted with Shea Homes, the master developer of Highlands Ranch, and they submitted this letter stating that they feel our neighborhood would be a welcome addition to the Highlands Ranch community. Just to recap our amendment process that we've been through with this application, this is the 77th amendment to the Highlands Ranch PD. Our application included a traffic study, preliminary site plan, and amendment to the Highlands Ranch PD map. We went through 2 rounds of review with Douglas County Planning and Engineering departments, and we developed a conceptual site plan, which I shared earlier. We went through 2 rounds of referral agency review, and did preliminary grading and engineering of the site. We have held 7 neighborhood meetings to date, which we will speak about later in the presentation. We took our plans before the Planning Commission back in October, and they made a unanimous recommendation of approval, and of course we are here before you today as the next step in the review process. Just to step back and kind of look at the larger process as it relates to development of the site. We're, of course, in the PD amendment stage, after which we will prepare and submit a preliminary plan in accordance with the PD amendment and the development standards that we are asking for your approval of today. And after that, we will proceed with the final plat application in hopefully 6 to 8 months from now. So all that to say, this is really just the beginning stage in our pursuit of developing the site. We know that this board is charged with determining whether or not a major amendment application meets 7 specific approval criteria outlined in the Douglas County zoning resolution. And we'd like to quickly go through and explain how our application meets each of those 7 criteria. Starting with criteria number 1, whether the amendment is consistent with the development standards, commitments, and overall intent of the plan development. As we've mentioned, our amendment proposes the site adopt the development standards of the surrounding residential neighborhood of Planning Area 43 so that it would be consistent with the standards and the intent of the plan development. Number 2, whether the amendment is consistent with the intent, efficient development, and preservation of the entire plan development. As we explained earlier, the original use for the site was residential lots. It was designed with the rest of the neighborhood. And with the property being deeded back to Douglas County School District on behalf of the county so that it could be taken to the open market for sale, it was deemed to be an efficient development site. With regard to preservation of the entire PD, our amendment proposes the site be subject to the development standards of Planning Area 43, preserving the character of the surrounding community, and as well there will be minimal change to the total percentage of open space and civic space of the Highlands Ranch PD, which remain well above the required percentages. Criteria number 3, whether the amendment will adversely affect the public interest or enjoyment of the adjacent land. Our amendment proposes changing the designated use for the site from an elementary school use to single-family residential lots, which will guarantee that future development of the site will be consistent with the character of the surrounding neighborhood. As well, the lots of our proposed development plan are the same size as the existing neighborhood lots. So again, all we're asking is to allow the site to be developed just like the surrounding neighborhood that it was originally designed with back in 1994. The traffic study found that if the site were to be developed as single-family residential lots, as we proposed, it would have 50% less traffic volume than if the site were developed with its current use, an elementary school. And it's worth noting that future development will incorporate a number of infrastructure improvements that benefit the larger neighborhood. This includes increased connectivity and more efficient traffic movement through the neighborhood as part of our concept plan, a design that includes 2 four-way stops, which were a direct request of the neighborhood as part of our community outreach. And as well, as part of our project, infrastructure improvements will be made to the existing drainage system and facility. And those improvements will address an existing issue that is causing serious life safety concerns for neighborhood residents, which we will explain later in the presentation. Number 4, you must determine whether the sole purpose of the amendment is to confer a special benefit upon an individual. That is not the intent of our amendment. In fact, there's many who will benefit. Existing neighborhood homeowners will benefit from increased connectivity and the drainage infrastructure improvements that I just mentioned that we'll talk about later in the presentation. And of course, I think most notably, the Douglas County School District will benefit for sale of the site with proceeds going directly to local teachers and students, which in turn, benefits the greater Douglas County community. Number 5, whether the amendment is consistent with the water supply standards in Section 18A, Water Supply Overlay District of this resolution. We went through the will serve letters earlier. Centennial Water and Sanitation District confirmed that the proposed amendment is consistent with those standards in the zoning resolution. Number 6, whether the public facilities and services necessary to accommodate the proposed development will be available concurrently with the impacts of such development. As we discussed earlier with the will serve letters from local agencies, the facilities are there to serve future development. And the road infrastructure and the drainage improvements to accommodate any future development will go through the county's construction document process and be reviewed, and that infrastructure would of course be installed prior to any future development on the site. And finally, number 7, whether the roadway capacity necessary to maintain the adopted roadway level of service for the proposed development will be available concurrently with the impacts of such development. The traffic study concluded that the current roadway capacity is sufficient to maintain the required level of service with minimal impacts as a result of the development. And as I stated on the previous slide, any improvements, roadway improvements with the proposed concept plan would go through the county's construction document review process and be in place prior to any future development. So in summation, we believe that we meet all 7 of the required approval criteria, but beyond just meeting this technical criteria, a lot of our team's effort over the past year has been concentrated on communication with the surrounding neighborhood and listening to them and working to address any concerns that they might have about future development of the site. And so at this time, I'd like to introduce Shea Bertola with Miller United. He's going to detail our outreach with the neighborhood.
Good afternoon, Shea Bertola with Miller United, and I'm at 6900 East Bellevue in Greenwood Village. So move on to our neighborhood outreach. And the camera does add 10 pounds, if you're wondering. This is one of our neighborhood meetings, and I'm just going to summarize what we've done. We've had 4 neighborhood meetings that were to outreach for all of the neighbors, including 2 at the Westridge Recreation Center, 2 on site, as you can see here, and then 3 others where we met specifically with homeowners with specific interests in the project, including 2 meetings with some owners that share a fence line at the property, and another meeting concerning traffic and some 4-way stops that we've proposed, and we'll get in more detail with that. Here are the major concerns, or the concerns we have gathered from the neighbors as we've met at those different meetings. Homeowners were concerned with the neighborhood character, lot sizes, home values, number 2, traffic, 3, drainage and grading on the site, and then fencing. So we'll go over each one of these quickly. Addressing neighborhood concerns about lot sizes. As stated before, the lot sizes are like the original plan of 1994 and similar in size to the surrounding neighborhood, including the cul-de-sacs a little bit larger. So on average, our lots are larger than the surrounding neighborhood. The intent of the development is to have homes that are similar in type and size and quality as the existing homes. On top, you'll see along Bitterroot Place some existing homes, and then some conceptual elevations of proposed homes that we would have on the adjacent street. As you notice these pictures, the only difference in architecture from 20 years ago to today is a lot of the garages these are still 3-car garage homes. A lot of the architecture just represents, side load garages, so the garage is not as prevalent. This is along Ironwood Street. Again, very similar homes so that we can maintain the character of the community. And the homes, this is along Cactus Bluff, and we would have similar type of the adjacent homes. Number 2, addressing traffic concerns. Anytime you have a new development, the neighbors are going to be concerned with the additional traffic that's generated. We have done a traffic study and completed it, including a recent memo. And the traffic, if approved as a residential use, will be 50% less than it would have been as a school use. So the impact is actually less to the homeowners as compared to an elementary school. We've also had the county engineers and our engineers review a proposed 4-way stop on Cactus Bluff in 2 locations, and the county's indicated that those would be warranted and approved as 4-way stops, calming the traffic throughout the neighborhood. We've met with neighbors and received this photo from some of the adjacent neighbors. This was in 2018 or 19, I believe. 2018, as noted on the slide below. There's some inadequate drainage facilities, and we have done a drainage study initially, and we will continue to do so to improve the drainage in this area. You can see in the blue box the existing life safety that can occur currently, and our plan is to oversize our drainage facility, study what the impacts could be, and help alleviate this as best we can. Additionally, some of the neighbors back and share a fence with what would be the new lots along. The neighbors are on Cactus Bluff Place. What we have done is we've proposed with these neighbors, and we've met with them in their home twice, is to install and pay for a fence that would border those neighbors. So we've proposed that. We've included a draft contract so that we could do that. And each of those neighbors that have attended those meetings have received that. This is just an example of where that would go with the existing homes above, and our site sits slightly below those existing homes. As stated before by Daniel, is we met with your planning commission, and 3 neighbors spoke at that time. They spoke about water availability concerns, density compatibility, and the need for a wildlife impact study. So between last meeting and this meeting, what we have done, as stated and shown before, we do have a letter from Centennial Water District stating they do have capacity and water availability. Additionally, in your staff report, you'll see that the project has been reviewed by Colorado Division of Water Resources and also deemed to have water for the project. Density compatibility, we are not proposing any more density than the original plat and the existing homeowners. So we feel that this will be very consistent with the surrounding neighborhood. And we have also completed a wildlife study which shows no findings of wetlands, no observation of any state or federal listed species on the protected species list, and no archaeological findings. So we have done and completed that as well. So I'll turn the time back over to Daniel, and we'll stand for questions at the end as well.
Thanks, Shay. Thanks, commissioners. We're going to wrap this up. So in conclusion, we ask that you approve our PD amendment to add 48 residential lots to the Highlands Ranch PD based on the following reasons. This is a logical site for infill development given the surrounding neighborhood and the existing infrastructure that's already in place. The lots of our proposed development are equal in size and complementary to the surrounding neighborhood. The site was identified as a top priority site for development by the Douglas County School District, with the proceeds going directly to benefit local teachers and students. The overall open space, civic, and school space of the PD remain well above the required minimums of the Highlands Ranch PD. And we have had, and we will continue to have, extensive neighborhood outreach with the surrounding community and homeowners listening to their concerns. And finally, we'd like to remind you all of the action that really set things in motion, and honestly the reason that we're here today. At that Board of County Commissioners meeting back on February 23rd, 2021, staff presented a request to transfer the property from Douglas County to the Douglas County School District so that they could take the site to the open market for development. The school district declared that the site was surplus property and therefore no longer needed for future school facilities, and they requested the property transferred to them so they could sell the land for development. The motion approving conveyance of the property to the school district was moved and voted unanimously to approve by you all, and your vote that afternoon really set the wheels in motion for the site to be developed, and we have brought our PD amendment before you this afternoon as the first step in that process, and we ask you to please finish what you started that day and vote to approve our application. So that concludes our presentation. Thanks for letting us talk through our plans. We look forward to any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you for that presentation, both of you. Any questions for the applicant?
I have none.
I have one question, and I'm not sure if it's for you or staff. You had said that the amount of open space, even with this, for Highlands Ranch is still well above, is below what is required. And in the packet, it's my page 20, it's under G called open space. And there's a paragraph that says approximately 4,293 acres are open space, which is 20% of the Highlands Ranch plan development. So is there a requirement? Where I'm going with this is, if we approve this, I know that this land is not open space. It is a school site. But would this be doing anything that would impact the number of acres required for open space in Highlands Ranch?
There's a requirement that a minimum 6% of the PD be set aside for public uses, essentially, and I don't have that number exactly in front of me. But what what has been set aside for that 6% is actually 4,293 acres, which is 20% of the PD. So there's a significant overage of open space.
Okay,
above
thank
what's
you.
required.
That was my question. Thank you. I have no other questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. So really appreciate the significant amount of groundwork that you have put into this project. I think it's always helpful from our vantage point when there's been a lot of citizen engagement in a number of meetings, and oftentimes concessions made to ensure that everybody is on the same page. You know, I'm going to refer back to that letter from April 8th from HRCA. Did you want to speak to some of the concerns or considerations that the Highlands Ranch Community Association raised?
Yeah, we reached out to HRCA and we made sure, and I got the letter, the same letter that you guys did. They've indicated that they do have capacity, that they do want to accept the property, and we would be accepted into the HRCA, Highlands Ranch Community Association. We would be subject to their regulations, their design standards, to ensure that we were compatible with the existing homes around this. They've also indicated that they're accepting of these additional units as approved through the county as well.
Okay. Is that something that you have in writing for the record?
We received the letter from them, and we've had additional communication with them that they know that we're in as an application to the county. So,
right. Well, I think that's significant if HRCA is supportive of your application. I don't know if we have from staff any additional information that would corroborate that.
At this time, the only thing that was provided from HRCA is the letter dated April 8th, 2022 that's included in the file. I think the applicant has had additional conversations with HRCA since that time, but that's the only written correspondence we've received.
Okay, but you said you got a letter back from them.
We don't have any additional letter. We've had correspondence with them, including there's a process where you go in, and it's even for a residential community, it's called their commercial committee, and we would set before them, and they would approve our homes and our architecture and that as well. So they know that there's an additional process to take place with them, and we know that as well.
Is that the design board?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, so that would be the additional process in terms of that,
Yep.
that concern. You know, I was really encouraged about the traffic issue. Oftentimes we hear that as an objection to applications similar to this. And based upon the traffic study, it sounds as though, obviously, if this was developed as intended as a school, the traffic count would be higher. I don't know if staff has any additional information from engineering or what you have regarding the traffic study.
Hi, Commissioners. This is Ken Murphy for staff. I just know that our development review transportation engineer reviewed the study and he agreed with the conclusions. And I also noted that the four-way stop was warranted due to sight lines.
Okay. What's the current level of service?
I don't recall. It's in the traffic study, but it was acceptable per county standards.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Let me just ask the board, any additional comments or questions before citizen comment?
None from me.
I have none.
Okay. With that, let me open it up for citizen comment. We'll start for any citizen comments that are coming from the gallery here today. And if you'd like to just come up to the podium and state your name and where you're from for the record. Welcome, sir.
Hello. Matt Cummings, 9142 Ironwood Street. Thank you, Commissioners, for hearing this. I feel this is a little different than other developments in that, and you saw the picture, literally, this is a field surrounded by existing houses, been there for 20 plus years. It's not on the edge of a lot, it's not only houses on one side. I feel that's a little different. It's been 20 years, yes, originally as a housing development, and then as a school, and now back to a housing development. But 20 years is a long time to establish part of a community, part of a neighborhood. And it's only a field, but it is part of our neighborhood, part of our community. And I know this, and by the way, I've seen the foxes and the coyotes and the migrating birds and the hawks swooping down to get the field mouse. And not just me, but my sons have seen it too. They've also sled ride down the hill that's on the Ironwood side, as do every winter kids from 3 to 10 years old. Not a big hill, but when you're at home on a Wednesday and school's closed, it's a pretty cool thing to do. That says it's established as part of our community. And I want that to please be considered in the deliberations over this. The folks who are developing this have been quite good. They've been reaching out, and that's all fine, and none of this is on them. They're doing what they do. I'm asking this board to consider something a little different and consider that it's been 20 years, and that is enough to establish it as part of our neighborhood. What worries me is taking that small field, packing it with 48 houses, which in that case, nobody gets a view of those Rockies. And if you haven't seen it, it's gorgeous. We all enjoy it. But more importantly, for human and for critters, we no longer have that space to do what we want to do. The critters no longer have a place to go. The traffic being 50% less than it was if it was a school, good with that, agree. But how much more is it than it is today? None of us are interested in that, in 50 homes with 2 cars each, and that traffic that creates as well. I'd also like to understand a little better if the Highlands Ranch PD does have a cap on the total number of units, and we are going to request that to be lifted to add these homes. Usually a cap is there for a reason, possibly including quality of life and character of neighborhood. And I'd like to understand why that's an okay thing to do if Highlands Ranch is going to do that. By the way, we love our open space. We all do. We just voted on ballot issue 1A to extend the 0.1% sales tax. We love this. And even if we're over by 20, however much we're over on open space, this is another reason. This is why we love open space. And this is a very small field to keep for our neighborhood and our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Additional citizen comment? Welcome, sir.
Yes, my name is Scott Leader. I live at 2501 Cactus Bluff Place, which is one of the properties that backs up to this proposal. I do have to hand Miller United utmost respect for their presentation and the amount that they've met with us. I wouldn't want anyone else doing this project. That being said, I still don't like it. The thing that concerns me today that I'd like to make known is the elevations that they showed and the split 3-car garages, which goes against the character of the neighborhood. Every home in that neighborhood that has a 3-car garage has a connected 3-car garage right next to each other. There are exactly 3 homes that are on corner or weird curves that have those garages that don't face the street as it is. And I believe the plans that we're seeing from them today would go against that character. So I just want to put that out there for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Additional citizen comment? Welcome, sir.
My name is Steve Kringle. I live at 2275 Indian Paintbrush Drive. Questions that weren't, or mine is questions more than anything else. One thing wasn't addressed is, well, it was mentioned that it was going to take 8 months to get platting done. I haven't heard anything that tells me what's going to happen during that 8 months or other reviews that are going to go on. Secondly, when is construction planning on starting and how long will it take to happen until completion?
Great, thank you, sir. And we'll answer those questions. We'll have the applicant respond to those after citizen comment. Okay. Additional citizen comment.
I'm Jeff Bullock. I live at 2581 Cactus Bluff Place. My home backs up to the field. I had a lot of prepared remarks. I think what stood out to me was under the review criteria 1520.3, it says whether the amendment will adversely affect public interest or enjoyment of the land. I mean, I guess that's only the eye of the beholder, but obviously a development will adversely affect all of the neighbors. And, you know, if you talk about home values or enjoyment, as the gentleman talked about, I mean, the field is what attracted my family and probably everyone else's family to this area. So that is going to adversely affect us. We back right up to it. Also, I just think of you as a board have set precedent with Topher and Stillwater, which were parks or plats that were excess capacity for the school that have since been deemed not to be developed and that are either going to be turned into parks or open space. And so I guess I would say if this is approved, why did they get preferential treatment over our plot of land? Is it because they were first? Is it because there were relationships? What was the reason why they have been approved and we're sitting here trying to fight for the same approval of keeping the land, the open space, and it's obviously been all over the news. I think I read that they had a celebratory event during the summer to celebrate that it's not being developed. Those are my main comments. I guess I would just go back to the section 1520. I guess it's all in the eye of the beholder, but this does adversely affect everyone who sits there, so it wouldn't meet that plan criteria. And I would highly, I guess, put a lot of emphasis on Topher and Stillwater that you have already agreed with the neighborhood as opposed to the developer. And if you do go ahead and approve, I would appreciate an explanation as to why those situations were different than ours, because, and from my point of view, it would need to be a material difference for what was going on there than here, or else it just kind of leaves a question of why those were approved and this wouldn't be. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Additional citizen comment. Welcome.
My name's Kimberly Waddups. I actually live on 9605 Golden Eagle Place. But my brother is just buying a house on 481 Cactus Bluff Place. He couldn't be here. He's in Singapore, moving his family here. I have been giving him raving reports about Highlands Ranch. We love it so much. It is a wonderful place to raise our family. We have 4 kids, and when we bought our home, we did so under the assumption that that was going to be an elementary school. My brother, who's moving there, also has 4 kids, and if it doesn't need to be an elementary school anymore, I understand. That's totally fine. But still, again, for the last 20 years, people have been purchasing homes with the assumption that it will be some public benefit in that area. And so, like Jeff was saying, the number 3 on the major amendment criteria list, I don't think it passes for that. Also, number 6, the public facilities and services to pass an amendment. Is that what it was? Has there been an impact study done on like the Westridge Rec Center? Because I know that you said that HRCA was not a fan originally, and that's the latest that we've gotten from them, other than some conversations that are not documented. But for me, I love the rec center. It would negatively impact me if there were 48 additional homes, which may have been originally planned, but that was before these other fill-in projects. So that's my other point, I guess, is that, so the cap that we had originally that included that, the way this was originally planned, that was included in the cap, right? But if we've been, as they were showing us, they've been putting in more homes, and so now we're to the point where we would need to raise the cap. I don't know if the public facilities can really handle that. I mean, they're saying that the fire can and the water can, but the parks, have we looked at the parks and the rec centers? Again, like, we love living there so much, and we love it because it was a planned community. And if we keep changing the plan, that'll just make it hard to love. So please reconsider.
Thank you, ma'am. Additional citizen comment. Welcome, sir.
Chris Pizzetta. I live on Ironwood Street, a block off of, or Ironwood Way, which is a block off of the lot. A couple of housekeeping things. They said there was a 36,000 house cap, and then they said they wanted to raise that to 36,068. I thought we were only building 48 houses. Can somebody talk to that? And as you know, that space has been designated for not just an elementary school or a school. It's been dedicated for elementary or public use space. And everybody that lives in that neighborhood, that's what we were sold on when we moved into that neighborhood. Not just that it was an elementary school, right? It was supposed to be where everybody can go play and do everything. And my kids grew up there. They grew up sled riding on that hill. They even rode their bikes down that hill and did jumps and stuff over there. So that is an important part of our neighborhood. And then the other thing that I want to go over is, let's see, the wildlife thing again, you know, like I said last time, is that we have a lot of bobcats and foxes and coyotes, which I think are going to go away when that space gets taken up because they no longer have an avenue to flow through the neighborhood. We have hawks and owls and everything that come to that area. And then the last comment I want to make is the comments that were made last time when we had this meeting. We had talked about a few things. And you guys didn't really even know what that lot was for. You didn't know that it was public use space. You just thought it was a school. And what I heard last time when we talked about this was you made comments that, you know, oh, the neighborhood was crazy because it was a school and then they didn't want to vote for a school that wanted to move in there. There were reasons behind that, and that was because of the traffic, because they were not going to have busing. Our kids were not going to be guaranteed to go to that school. That's why we voted against getting that school there. And then, you know, we thought that that was done, and now we're going to build houses there, which is going to take away that lot for our kids and our grandkids to go play on. Let's see what else. I think that's it. Oh, and part of that wildlife study was a migratory bird study that has to be done during that time frame, which obviously we're not at that time of year, but if those houses get built, when's that going to get done? And then, you know, from last time too, after public comment was over, you then asked these guys questions, which then raised more questions, and we weren't allowed to comment on that again. How do we get around that? Okay.
Sir, thank you for your comments. We appreciate that.
Yep.
Welcome, ma'am.
My name is Lynn Holmes. I live at 2641 Cactus Bluff Place. This is the last thing I want to do. I hate public speaking. Miller United has been great. We've been trying really hard to work with them, but I don't want to give the impression that that means we like this or that we want this or that this is a good thing for our neighborhood. It's not, as they've said. I've lived there for 22 years as an open space with the expectation of a public elementary school that all of our kids could attend. We chose to fight the charter schools, to reiterate, because of the traffic problems, because they were going to be no buses, because it was for Ben Franklin Elementary was the third one that tried, over 700 students with no busing, and we were told our kids could not attend unless they won the lottery. So we fought that. We fought it because we knew for the character of the neighborhood, it was not a good fit. We wanted a public school or something that everyone could use. And I also just want to say that just because you don't see a lot of people from the neighborhood here today, it doesn't mean that everybody agrees with this and everybody wants it. People are working today. People also have the sense, like I do, that this is just a foregone conclusion and what we say and feel and think really doesn't matter. And I just want you to know that it does matter to us. This is not a great idea. It's not the best use of the land. I just ask that you consider that as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Additional citizen comment?
I have one more.
You know, unfortunately, 3 minutes per citizen. Welcome, sir.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Alexander Ryan, and I'm a new resident in the area. I purchased my home within the last 2 years, and to their point about you know, realtors having used that space as a cudgel basically to help people move in, you know, I was presented to me that way that this was, you know, an open space that would remain an open space. So I'm strongly opposed to the development plan. There's a good question that was posed about how Highlands Ranch Community Association already has a cap. How could we possibly vote on that unless Highlands Ranch Community Association's opinion is included there? They should be able to weigh in on this before, a vote is passed. I would wager. To the argument about the character of the neighborhood, the elevations that we were shown just now certainly would not match the character of the neighborhood, and the design is simply 20 years in the future. Like, there's no way that you're going to be able to build and design today to match the original designs of the neighborhood, and certainly wouldn't match the character. In my opinion, there's no benefit for any of the homeowners in this process or anybody in the neighborhood. It really only serves the financial interests of the developer here. So it would be, I think it's a horrible plan. I really think that it would hurt my home value, and not only that, but my enjoyment of my home. So I'm really not looking forward to having, construction in the neighborhood for the next 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. It just doesn't seem like a really good plan. And there's no way that the character of the new houses would match what's originally there, as it's been previously mentioned, and the cap. Exceeding the cap would be a terrible plan, and it was pointed out that the cap included those homes that were, originally planned that they could maybe, shift to a development there, but they were built elsewhere. So we're already up against this cap. I mean, why was the cap instated in the first place? Why would they, want to change that at this point? So I am strongly opposed to this plan. I don't think it benefits the neighborhood, and I think you guys should reconsider. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Additional citizen comment? And if you do have citizen comment, let me ask if you can just stand up and line up near the podium, and we'll just go one by one. Now we can save some time as people are coming up. Yes, ma'am? If you want to just state your name and address for the record, or just where you're from.
Hi, I'm Ashley Leader. My address is 2501 Cactus Bluff Place, backing up to the open space. My husband and I bought this home in the height of the market in March. We are crazy people. We bought it knowing that it would be our forever home. We are hoping to start a family, and so I'm encouraging you to think about the future of this land as well, the next 20, 40 years. We are struggling with infertility, but we are trying to start a family. I would encourage you to think about me and my other neighbor that just bought another home down the street, whom is also pregnant and will be starting a family soon. Please think of the elementary-aged students in this neighborhood. I'm hearing that the elementary school that we'll be going to, the students are in modules. Cars now line up around the block. Perhaps what could this land be used for in the future if we might need an elementary school? Please think of the future families and the current families that are there, and please do not consider this proposal for this open space.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Heather Young, live at 2701 Cactus Bluff. Back up to this property, and I have a couple of questions and comments. One in particular, a lot changes obviously in 28 years, and that was when the original plan was. I'm just wondering if things change that many times in that amount of time, is there any recourse, a backup plan if they were to need area for school at some point in the future? It's already changed twice now in this, so I'm concerned about that. Also, there was a picture included of the drainage issues. That is at the opposite end of the circle there from where I live. I know I had emailed after the first meeting, I had pictures of flooding that happened at the opposite end. So I have a concern about if that is regraded and those homes are brought up, where is that water going to go, and is that going to come back into my neighborhood or into my backyard? So I don't know if that's been, or how that's been addressed. Also, I know when we bought that home, which was from the original owner 2 years after it was built, there was never any mention of it being anything other than possibly school or public use. I know that it was mentioned in the beginning about Douglas County being a unique place as far as neighbors being able to get together and, you know, take a piece of land and buy it and develop it or whatever. It seems like the homeowners that are most impacted by this, that was never offered to them, or even it being a possibility. So I guess I have an issue with that. And then also, as far as the fencing goes, because that would directly affect where we are, it seems like there's lack of clear approval from HRCA in regards to that when the developer was questioned about that. And then how do we, I mean, we have drought restrictions, so I guess I don't understand how water is not an issue. I know that Centennial has said we can service that, but why am I being charged extra and these drought restrictions if that is not an issue? And then lastly, just, I know that there's been a wildlife impact study and a traffic study. Is there any way to quantify the neighborhood impact and doing a study that way? Because I'm sure that's obviously very negative. And anyway, thanks for your time.
Thank you for your time. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Erin Williams, resident at 2667 Bitterroot Place, and we're newer owners. My husband is active duty Army. He is on 27 plus years in the service, and I have been married to him. We were high school sweethearts for all that time. He's done 8 deployments, and I can't tell you how many months of years it's probably added up to, training and other times he was away, and 17 moves. And during a lot of that hardship, so one thing that would get us through it is, okay, someday it's going to be the last move. Someday we'll have a home of our own, and that'll be, we call it our settle down house, and this is our settle down house. And we moved into it thinking that it was going to be public use. I do not let my 11-year-old town center people come flying down there, go down to, unfortunately, beautiful park. It's just too busy, and people come, like I said, people come flying down. But I let her go across the street to that park. And if it had been in school, on the weekends, she still could have gone over in the parking lot and flown her kite. And still built probably a snowman over there when school, not during the school day, but also on Bitterroot, most of us the front yards sit very close to the street. My husband can barely park his little Jeep Wrangler without the back end hanging out over the sidewalk. And like I said, we have 2 kids, we have a small dog, and if there had been homes right on the other side and we had more traffic, I don't know that we would have chosen that home. Having all those homes there would definitely adversely affect my little girl sitting out chalking on the sidewalk. I would feel like it's not as safe. And also, the same thing as she said, I just don't know when we're on water restrictions during the summer, where is this water going to come from? That's all I have.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Scott Goldhammer, and I live at 9543 Chesapeake Street in Highlands Ranch. I've been a Highlands Ranch resident for the past 27 years. Over this time, I experienced the growth from less than 30,000 residents to now over 100,000. I've seen the increase in residential commercial activity and all the major arterials. I've also experienced the positive market-driven changes that have taken place in our community, and quite honestly, my wife and I cannot imagine living anywhere else. And I guess I'm standing up for the 48 people that might have a home in this particular area. That doesn't seem to be a representative individual standing at the podium today. I've been following this application over the past several months. I've reviewed the proposed development plans, some 48 single-family homes, which in 1994 originally Mission Viejo platted. From everything I can see, it's consistent with the original intent in this body's vote back in February of 21 for the conveyance of the property be sold to the benefit of the school district. It also seems to me that this plan is a favorable design compared to the current zoning of an elementary school. I understand the folks that thought or maybe were sold on the idea that this land could have been open space or that there would be nothing built there. And I do feel, I have 9 grandchildren, I do feel for the fact that my grandchildren would be sledding on that hill as well. But I don't believe that that was the original intent of the board. I don't believe that's the original intent of the school. I live near Topher Park, and I too would be interested in understanding the decision-making process that took place as to why Topher wasn't converted to residential, and I don't quite understand that decision-making body. I feel the applicant and his constituents has done a great job presenting the preliminary zoning plan, providing community awareness, hosting various neighborhood meetings, and I think a lot of those people supported Miller United in that, studying traffic flows, and proposing infrastructure improvements to resolve the drainage issues. Having been a homeowner in Highlands Ranch for nearly half of my life, I'd like to register my support for this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional citizen comment? Yes, ma'am.
Now, mine may be a very simple question, but no
Ma'am,
one
if you
seems
just want to state your name and where you're from for the record.
Oh, I'm Diane Kringle, and we live at 2275 Indian Paintbrush Drive.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone moves into these houses, and most of them don't have big families. Pretty soon, instead of 2 cars, when the kids grow up, there's 5. Where do these cars park? Because the streets aren't that big. And like someone else mentioned, we don't have, the driveways aren't big enough to pull in 5 cars. And a lot of the people use the garages as storage units. When we go to get out, I saw the 4-way stops. There were 2 of them. To get out of this area, if you're talking about all of these cars either going to school or going to work, etc., how are we going to get onto town center? It's already congested, plus all of the people that are coming downtown center from Santa Fe. You can sometimes wait 5 minutes just to get out there, especially during rush hour. Are there going to be traffic lights somewhere? And that could be, you're going to have kids shooting across on bicycles, on skateboards, you name it, they're going to be going. Plus the accidents, plus football games. I think that needs to be addressed because it's a large area and I can only see 1, 2, 4 ways to get in and out of it. But that could be a real serious problem. And hopefully we're going to be there a long time. And I've got 7 grandkids that come over to visit. I mean, when we have something, the street's pretty much taken up, and the driveway. So, anyhow, it is an issue.
Thank you, ma'am. Additional citizen comment? Any other comment in the room? Okay, let me just ask if there's any citizen comment online.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have no online comment.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I'll close citizen comment. Let me just ask the applicant, we heard a lot of different issues from the community, if you wanted to respond to those.
Again, thanks for the comments, and we do have, I made notes, so if I miss any, go ahead and help me with that. Just want to remind the Board of County Commissioners and everybody here, when you plan a plan development with 36,000 units or lots in it, there's going to be some changes. So I just want to remind everyone, this is the 77th Amendment. So there is precedent for change as you plan out a community. And I appreciate that change is very difficult sometimes. I wanted to answer a few questions as I go through my notes. There was a question earlier about level of service for the existing traffic. I've read the report many times. All of our levels of service are currently at A or B, And upon completion of this development, they will remain at A or B levels as well. There is, as we've stated before, there will be 50% less traffic. So there is a benefit to the community of, there is going to be less traffic of this as opposed to the other school development. There was a question about the total number of units in the Highlands Ranch PD. It is only getting increased by 48 units. The original number is 36,020, and we're going to 36,048, or 36,068, which is just the 48 units only. So I think that was a question there. There was a question about timing. The rest of this process considers a preliminary plan and then a final plat. That would take between 8 and 10 months. We would go through that process mostly in 2023, and then the horizontal infrastructure in the homes would be built, depending on the market, in 2024 and further on. So that would answer the question on timing. There was a question on drainage. Our plan is to size and do the drainage study, and we're not going to shift the water to the other side of the development. We understand that there's been some challenges on both sides of the development, and our plan is to study and oversize infrastructure where we can to help the existing neighbors with their existing infrastructure issues as well. We do have a will serve letter from HRCA. We will go through their process, and although the homes may be newer in design and not match exactly, I don't think that was the intent. It's just to match the neighborhood in quality, type, size. So we will continue and commit to do that through the community association as well. Yeah.
It should be in the presentation, slide 22. There's a letter dated from October. There was one from April, and then there was one from October. So.
From HRCA, and we will provide that as well. An additional will serve letter from the HRCA board as well. And just, I think I answered. If anybody has any notes that I didn't answer, I'd be glad to do that. I just wanted to close with there's two, and I've studied the Highlands Ranch PD quite extensively. There were two requirements of civic space and open space, and those numbers, the requirements were 6% for civic space in the many acres that are Highlands Ranch, and 24% of open space. Those were the requirements in the PD. The current totals of those are, for the 24% requirement, the Highlands Ranch PD currently has 40%, so well in excess. For the 6%, as Brett mentioned earlier, it sits at 20%. So well above the minimums. Our change is less than 0.5% of that total in the civic use arena. So we did have the answer to that. And those were all my notes from the comments. And if I missed anything, I'm glad to stand up again.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions or comments for the applicant? And citizen comment is closed at this time, so now it's the Board of County Commissioners asking questions of the applicant.
I have no questions.
I have no questions of the applicant. I do have a question for the school district.
Sure. I think we do have a representative from the school district here. If you'd like to come up and state your name and where you're from.
Good afternoon. Richard Cosgrove, Chief Operations Officer, Douglas County Schools, 620 Wilcox Street, Castle Rock, 80104. Thank you for the opportunity to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cosgrove. So there was a question asked about, there's been a lot of changes about what's going to happen with this lot. And maybe someday the school district is going to want to use this for a school. So I believe this is 10 acres. What kind of size lot are you looking at these days for a school?
Thank you for the question. Our current elementary prototype has at least 12 acres because of on-site water quality and detention that's required. That's the size that we target, for example, schools like Clear Sky Elementary or Gold Rush Elementary for 700 elementary students. The students in the smaller elementary schools in the prior years of the district basically had 3 classrooms per grade. Our current prototype has 4 classes per grade for program reasons.
So do you see, based on what you just told us, a need? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but it seems like from the classes or the sessions we've had with the school district over all these years, that you are looking, having larger pieces of ground to put a school on, and that's why this 10-acre lot no longer works for you. Is that correct?
The lot is not ideal. The main reason the site is surplus, as evaluated by our long-range planning committee and approved by resolution by our Board of Education, is the declining enrollment in the Highlands Ranch area because of the aging of the population, including myself. I live in Highlands Ranch, and the reduced birth rates. So we have a very robust school capacity boundary analysis through our long-range planning committee. We look at school attendance boundaries, and that includes the overflow school, currently Cowdy Creek, for Sterling Ranch and Solstice. And we'll continue to analyze the Thunder Ridge feeder to house those students, but it is not forecasted in the Highlands Ranch area to need future program capacity for elementary school children.
Thank you. There was discussion about, and there was information in the packet that there was an attempt in the past for charter schools to use that parcel. Were you, as part of the school district, involved in those discussions or not?
I was not directly involved, but I was director of construction at the time. So as one of the community members correctly said, Ben Franklin Academy petitioned our board to use that site for a charter school. That was not passed, and my understanding was because of the traffic concerns and the enrollment policies of charter schools and how they accept students using the open enrollment and the lottery system. So that was not approved by our board.
So you've been here for quite a while, sitting here. Is there anything else that you think that we should know as we do these deliberations from the school district's perspective?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner. This application does support the Board of Education resolution that acknowledged in October of 2019 the collaboration between the Board of County Commissioners, the Douglas County Board of Education, to consider the disposal of school sites that have been declared surplus.
So, Mr. Cosgrove, I remember while we were having all those meetings and discussing this, that there was a discussion that these parcels were set aside by developers all over, not just in Highlands Ranch, but in Douglas County, for the benefit of students and their education to offset the impact of development on the school district. And so it seems like to me that part of our discussion was that if you had the ability to sell this parcel for a market rate because the parcel had been set aside for 20 years or longer, the school district would benefit not only from the revenue from selling the lot to a developer, but as homes were put on that would be incoming revenue to the school district as well. Is that correct?
So, two answers. Yes, there is a district-wide initiative to continue the evaluation of school sites that are no longer needed. That would be submitted to our Board of Education for their approval or comment on the disposal and selling of that consistent with state statute and board policy. As far as the revenue from the sale of this, the contract states that that would only come at the final plat approval as approved by the Board of County Commissioners, and that would go for our many priority needs as prioritized by Superintendent Aaron Kane and approved by our board.
And then if homes are put on that property through property taxes, there would be additional ongoing revenue every year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It seems like to me when we were having the work sessions on this back in 2019 that I heard that 30% of homes have children in them that are an impact on the school district. Is that a correct number? Do you know?
I don't have that number right off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Okay, but
it is a significant amount. Yes.
It's a significant number of. So
are many homes in our county do have school-age children. Absolutely. And we are well over 63,000 students still. Our enrollment projections, even though we have some declining neighborhoods, we have pockets that are booming. Sterling Ranch, Crystal Valley, the Canyons. So our enrollment projections are, in general, flatline because we have pockets that are declining and pockets that are growing.
Okay. I thought in our conversations that I had heard that only 30% of homes in a neighborhood have students in them, and 70% of homes do not.
That is correct in the general sense, not only in our county, but across many areas of the country. The majority of homes do not have kids, but it's because they're either empty nesters or they don't have children by choice. And even though with that said, the 30%, give or take, that do have children, we are a service provider, and we do forecast adequate schools without this site. But you're right, and a number of schools, and historically, over 50%, up to 70% has always been discussed based on previous market analyses as not having children.
Thank you for your time. I have no other questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Teal?
Yeah. So Colonel Cosgrove and I have talked through these issues many times, and I've always appreciated. Rich, could you tell us, I realize this is a private transaction between the school district and the development company, so I don't, unless you want to reveal the revenue from this, the sale of this property to the developer. If you don't want to reveal that, that can be a private matter, and I don't need to know that. But I'd like your categorization as Chief Operating Officer of the school district. Would the sale of this property to this development substantially be of benefit to the operation of the school district?
Commissioner Till, thank you very much for the question. Everything we do, we know is transparent public record. The purchase agreement, as approved by our board and posted on our district website, pending closure of this contract, is $4.9 million. Right now, just our master capital plan, which is a 5-year rolling capital plan, is almost $900 million. And that does not include the operational expenses of salary and benefits with our teachers and staff, in some cases almost 20% less than our neighboring school districts. So the ongoing and one-time capital needs are significant.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Teal. So this is an issue that has given me a lot of heartburn over the last 4 years. I'll just be candid about it. Certainly appreciate Mr. Cosgrove coming here. I believe I'm going to be joining you in a couple of hours here this evening to talk about a couple of items just as an individual. But no doubt we recognize that 5A and 5B did not pass. The school district is really hurting for additional resources to ensure that those teacher salaries are commensurate with its neighbors. I was supportive of that measure. I continue to be supportive of ways in which to save money by keeping good teachers. I was part of those discussions back in 2019. I know Commissioner Thomas was active with the development community, and you know, we are paid to be here. The Board of Education is not. It's a volunteer board. And my understanding at that time is that they were not cognizant that we had these properties that we held in trust for them that could be leveraged for future additional resources. Commissioner Thomas had several discussions, and I think through those discussions, it became very aware. I mean, you know, it became an issue that the Board of Education felt like, well, after the 20 years, if these properties got disposed of, it could create additional revenue for the school district. I'm all for supporting the school district, and I think that you need to be made whole on property that we're holding in trust for your benefit. So I'm really pleased that a couple of citizens brought up Sweetwater and Tepfer. I think those were good examples of where, through our open space parks sales tax measure that was originally passed in 1994, we were able as a board of county commissioners to purchase those lands and then dedicate them to the Highlands Ranch Metro District and South Suburban, and the proceeds of those sales went to benefit the school district. In my mind, everybody won. School district won, county won, citizens won because they got parks and open space in perpetuity. I spent my career as a commercial real estate attorney. I have worked with the development community forever, and I appreciate the hard work of the applicant to pursue this, and certainly don't fault them at all for trying to look at this property in a way that makes sense. It sounds like a lot of great community engagement for a significant number of meetings, and you've done a great job of that. But I really wrestle with citizens feeling as though the rug has been pulled out from underneath them after 20 years of living in a community, and all of a sudden space that they really valued and treasured is no longer what it used to be. And we all know that change occurs, but in law school you learn about a couple of principles. One is, adverse possession and prescriptive easements. And, there's this principle that after 18 years, if a property is, running for that statutory period, it's held open, adverse, continuously and hostile to the property owner, it's theirs. I'm not saying that we're in a prescriptive easement or adverse possession scenario here legally, but I think the common law principle does make sense that when people use and enjoy property for 18 plus years, 20 plus years in this example, that they do acquire some level of interest in the property. And I think we've heard that today. So I wrestle with what we're doing. I like the idea of using our open space sales tax fund, which just got re-upped by our citizens. That's $300 million through the life of that ballot measure going into the future that we can use for properties like this. We got questions from the citizens around why Sweetwater, why Tepfer, why not this property. That was a process. We have COSAC, we have our Parks Board that are advisory boards. We appoint, they identify properties in our community, and they make recommendations to our board around properties we should acquire. And then this Board of County Commissioners approves those. Those were two, I think, in conversations with the Board of Education that there was some consensus around moving in that vein. So I don't know. I just, again, I think that I go back to the HRMD correspondence, or at least the HRCA. I heard HRCA number. I've never heard it called HRCA before. Maybe that's just me, but we've always called it HRCA in Douglas County. But
I've lived there 23 years.
Yeah, I've never heard HRCA, but that's a. There is a cap for a reason. I get the 77 amendments, and that things change over time. But again, those conversions have already been made with regard to this particular piece of land. So I'm just not compelled that this makes sense for me. I think we've heard that this is a very special and unique piece of property for our citizens. I'm displeased that we're trying to put our development community in a really bad position with all of us trying to pursue these. So I will be a no on this today. Further comments or questions?
For me, listen, infill sucks. Infill development just sucks. And I mean, I feel like this is our first true infill development that the board has wrestled since I've been here. But I've dealt with several in my time on the Castle Rock Town Council. One, we were successful. We turned it into a town park. Okay, that was great. But then the one in my neighborhood actually was highlighted by Miller Company. And, that the one in Crystal Valley Ranch, that's my neighborhood. That's where I live. And I was on the council when we wrestled through redoing the zoning there. And sure enough, Miller, you guys are building right now. I pass it every day. So yeah, infill development sucks. For me, I am impressed though by the criteria under 1520-03 of .03, excuse me, in terms of the public benefit, the public interest, and turning empty land that is in possession of the school district and has value to another party to where that value can be transferred to the school district. And we heard Colonel Cosgrove and the overwhelming costs that we've undertaken to educate our children in this county. I see that as an overwhelming positive in the public interest to move forward. And believe me, guys, I've lived it. I've lived exactly what you're going through right now in my own community. So for me, I am a positive, I am a yes on this one right now. Just from the perspective, this is an opportunity, and it's something, again, I talked about in my past conversations with Mr. Cosgrove. The bottom line is the school district has been assigned all across this county in unincorporated Douglas County and in our municipalities property that has not been put to use by the school district. And I know that sounds like a stone thrown at you, Rich, and duck it, because it's not intended for you. It's intended for the policy that I've seen for the last 20 years coming out of the various boards. So this is an opportunity for us to take an empty piece of land and turn it into value for the students of the school district. And that's overwhelming for me. I would just say part of my decision-making when it came to Tupfer and when it came to Sweetwater, there were associated park activities already in place that were adjacent to it. And we had appeals from partners who would operate parks there to extend those. So I thought that is a good match. And then, again, infill sucks. It's never a good, easy decision. I appreciate Miller, though, taking the approach of doing like to like. I'm not seeing a plan here to put up McMansions. I'm not seeing a plan here to have high-rise apartments. I'm not seeing a plan here for strip malls. And I hope that's not what we see as we proceed through this process. But you stick with what was originally platted before Mission Viejo came to the board and dedicated the land to schools. And in the past, I think I'm consistent with my past votes. If that is the case, and it is like to like development, like the neighborhood that surrounds it now, my experience is that has been a net positive at the end of the day. I don't know if we have more discussion.
I would like to make a comment.
Absolutely.
First of all, let me just set the record straight. My colleague has accused me of having a lot of activity with developers, and that's just not simply the case. There have been a lot of accusations that have been made towards me in the last year, and there aren't any evidence to back those up. I will tell you that Commissioner Partridge and I had conversations with the school district about starting to sell these parcels that have been on the books for more than 20 years, because these parcels have been set aside for the benefit of kids' education. And they are not helping kids' education when they are simply sitting there. And that was the purpose of that conversation. After a land use on another issue, I did see Mr. Foster, and I know that Mr. Foster has been involved in infill projects. And I mentioned to Mr. Foster that these parcels would be available, some parcels would be available, and to contact the school district. So let me just put this on the record that that was the extent of that conversation. And I've explained this over and over and over in the years I've been having these attacks made on me. Let's talk about a school. We have heard people say that there were charter schools that were going to be put on this parcel, and the neighborhood fought them. And I can tell you I understand why. I have lived in Highlands Ranch for 23 years, and I have an elementary school directly behind my house. And I hear screaming, because that's what kids do. I hear bells ringing. I hear the overhead speaker ringing. I see the traffic in my neighborhood at 8:30 in the morning when parents are driving their kids to school. And there are times I think, I wish there were 48 homes back there and not a school, because it would not have the same impact. But when I bought my home, I knew there was going to be a school there, so that was part of the decision that was made. The traffic study has said that there will be 50% less traffic in a neighborhood as opposed from a school. And from living there, I can tell you that is true. There is less traffic when you don't have a school. There are already 4,293 acres in open space in Highlands Ranch, which far exceeds what is required. Those are the notes that I have written. Finally, I do think that selling these parcels that the school district has determined they do not need for schools, because of the size, are a way to benefit the school and bring revenue to the school for the purpose they were set aside for the education of kids. So I will be in support of this. If the conditions are acceptable, and I do believe that the conditions have been met.
Well, again, thank you for just admitting to exactly what we had identified, that you spoke with counsel for a developer about selling off land that was intended for people's benefit. And I don't think we were reaching beyond that. You just admitted to exactly what we said. And I don't think a single person here is in support of a commissioner doing that after a land use hearing. But that said, I'll continue to remain opposed to this. I don't know if there's any further discussion from the board. If not, I will. Let me ask the developer, the applicant, will you accept the two conditions as presented?
Yes.
Okay. So I will accept the motion.
I have a motion to approve the Highlands Ranch Plan Development 77th Amendment because it does meet all of the approval criteria with two conditions as presented. Project file ZR 2022-011.
Yeah, when we look at the base criteria, this is, if there wasn't the issue of school district, not school district, this would still meet our development criteria. So I second.
So we have a first and second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, aye, and that passes 2-1. And with that, we are adjourned. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, December 6, 2022 at 2:30 p.m. Thank you very much.